Turf racing is an interesting aspect of the total picture of thoroughbred racing. Now, you've had horses termed anywhere from good to great who could run on anything from slop to broken glass and still win. But there have been some horses, and some of them who have been called great, who really only put their best foot forward here on the turf course. John Henry is an example. More recently, great communicator. This son of Key to the Kingdom was at best mediocre on the dirt course, but when he moved over here onto the turf course, he really blossomed into something special. Why is this? Why do some horses run particularly well on the grass and not on the dirt? Is it training? Is it breeding? Is it foot structure? I really would like to know. I want to know why some horses strictly like to eat this stuff and not run on it. Kentucky horseman and trainer Neil Pessin.
Well, basically, some people say horses have turf breeding because they're by horses that have either liked the turf or their offspring has seemed to like the turf. But you really can't say a horse has turf breeding, because I had a horse that was ideal for the turf. He was by No Home the second out of a Gallant Man mare, which is strictly turf, both top and bottom, and he couldn't stand up on it. And then I've had other horses that shouldn't been able to stand up on it by their breeding, and they loved it. But basically, turf breeding is if either the sire or the sire's offspring have liked the turf, and people tend to think that they generally like the turf.
Tell me about Sharp Singer and what made him a good turf horse.
Basically, what made him a good turf horse was my training. But he was bred for the turf, and he'd run on the turf all his life in Europe. He was thought as a 2-year-old to be one of the better 2-year-olds in Europe at the time. And he came over to this country, and he went to California and ran some decent races on the turf, one at 6.5 furlongs and one at 1.5 miles, and placed second in a stake, all on the turf. And then he pulled a suspensory, and they ran him in a claiming race, and nobody took him, and he was retired to stud. They tried standing him at stud for a couple years, and he wasn't getting any mares in foal, and they sent him to the university trying to help him, and nothing seemed to work. So they gelded him and put him back in training and ran him here for $5,000 on the dirt, and I took him and he ran 8th. Basically, I tend to always have 1 or 2 horses that improve on the turf, and it's nice to have a turf course to try a horse, because like Sharp Singer, he ran for $5,000 on the dirt and finished 8th, and he won a stake and set a track record on the turf. So I mean, there can be that much vast improvement. A mare like How I Wish, who ran here last year, I think was claimed for 12.5 at Louisiana Downs, running on the dirt, and they put her on the turf, and she's a multiple graded stakes winner now.
Even some riders are considered grass specialists. Jockey Ronald Ardwin won the Colonel E.R. Bradley Stakes aboard Ingot's Ruler. Is there a big difference between turf and dirt riding?
I don't think it's as much the riders as it is the horse. I mean, a race rider's a race rider, no matter if you make him ride on a blacktop road or a gravel road or a dirt track or a grass track. Some people feel that different riders do different things on different racetracks, but I feel it's still 90%, 95% the horse. And if you got a horse that excels over the turf, it'll make the rider look good, you know. So I put a lot of it on the horse.
Ricky Frazier, currently the Fairgrounds' second leading rider, has a different opinion on the same matter.
Well, you don't get near as dirty. But the main thing is you have to really be very well at rating a horse. You have to do a good job, and you can't get too far back, but you have to always have a horse for that last 3/8 of a mile. And on the dirt, sometimes you can go out and steal a race, and you can do it sometimes on the turf, but you have to be a lot more aware of the pace, because there is a stronger and more the horses get a lot more bunched up, and you try to stay out of trouble, and you really have to know the pace. That's the main thing about the grass.
So what are the answers to my questions? There are no cut and dried answers. Just look for the fittest horse, with good turf breeding, maybe, ridden by a talented jockey. In other words, handicap a grass race as you would a dirt race. Only beware of those horses bred for the turf, like Sharp Singer, who have been running poorly on dirt.